Say hello to Mikanko. Now this is a deck that I've featured quite a few times on this channel, but in Cyberstorm Access it got some supremely impressive legacy support, including Fury the Orb Mikanko, a new monster, and a new equipped spell, Dance of the Mikanko Fascinating Bird. Now Fury is really the standout of these two cards, as it's another name Mikanko, which is very nice as the deck had a habit of breaking on not enough monsters, but it also lets you search the Mikanko trap cards, which are incredibly strong and really changes how the deck can function now that you can consistently get access to them, since getting Fury is not hard because of Mikanko the Ohime. And overall this deck is a lot stronger and a lot more promising now. Even if it's probably not going to be a meta deck, it has potential to be something rogue or even better. To start off with, let's go over the Mikankos. Now a couple features all of the Mikanko main deck effect monsters share is that if they are not equipped with an equip card, you take no battle damage for involving them, which is useful as all of them have 0 attack and defense. Now each of them has a different type and attribute. But if they do have an equipped spell, they cannot be destroyed by battle, and your opponent takes any battle damage you would take from them instead. Then they all have an effect when they become equipped with an equip card or if they actively have an equip card equipped. Now Hair, for example, when it becomes equipped, searches another Mikanko equip spell. The next one, Nini, during your opponent's turn while it is equipped with an equipped spell, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, take control of it until the end phase. And then the new one, Fury, when it becomes equipped with an equip card, you can add one Mikanko trap card from your deck to your hand. As for the final Mikanko monster, we have Mikanko of the Ohime, and this is the ritual monster of the archetype, and it has a couple twists on it compared to the normal effect monsters. For starters, the battle immunity and the battle damage on your opponent effect is just built in already. This card doesn't need an equip spell equipped to it to really get anything. Then its other on-field effect is a quick effect ability to target an equip spell in your graveyard and equip it to an appropriate monster on the field. But this card's strongest effect is its in-hand effect, where you can reveal it in your hand, add a Mikanko card from your deck to your hand except for Ohime, then discard one card. This gives incredible consistency, and as long as you don't discard Ohime, you can keep doing this every single turn. And you have plenty of ways to get cards from the grave back onto the hand or field, so that this card cost isn't really bad and might even help you set up. Now as for the rest of the Mikanko cards, to start off with the first of their spells, we have the Great Mikanko of Legend, a quick play spell card, the only in the archetype, that allows you to special summon one Mikanko monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions, but return it to the hand during your opponent's end phase. Now most notably, this lets you summon Mikanko of the Ohime without using any material. And while it does return to your hand, that's honestly probably a benefit, as what you can basically do is summon something like Mikanko of the Ohime, use its on-field effect, then it returns to your hand in the opponent's end phase, then you use Ohime's effect to search on your next turn, even searching another copy of Great Mikanko of Legend to do that all over again. It just allows you to get a really strong setup low loop there. Then for the first of their equip spells, we have Blazing Dance of the Mikanko, and this one allows you to special summon a Mikanko from your hand or grave, then equip it with this card, then you can optionally summon a monster from your opponent's grave to their field. Then the equipped monster cannot be destroyed by card effects. And this kind of protection is what most of the Mikanko equipped spells have. It does give effect destruction protection. And this is a pretty nice way to recover and bring monsters back from the graveyard, or even get them out of your hand if you really need to. Then we have Arabesque of the Mikanko, which is an incredibly strong one. It also gives it card effect destruction protection, but during your main phase, you can special summon one Mikanko monster from your hand or deck with a different original name than the monster, and if you do, equip it with this card, then return the originally equipped monster to the hand. Most notably, this card can even be equipped to your opponent's monsters, basically making it a way to bounce an opponent's monster while getting your own Mikanko on the field and triggering their effect. Then we have Inviting Rondo of the Mikanko, which is basically Snatch Steal. You can equip it to an opponent's monster, and you take control of it while you control Mikanko, but it cannot activate its effects while you control it. And when this card leaves the field, send the equipped monsters to the graveyard. So even if your opponent gets rid of this card, they still lose their monster. and this is a supremely strong effect, especially in conjunction with some of the quick effect equippers, such as for example Ohime. Then we have Purifying Dance of the Mikanko, which can also gives you destruction protection, and if a monster is special summoned to your opponent's field, you can target one monster you control and one monster your opponent controls, return them both to the hand. And this is a very good effect, especially something like Rondo or Nini, as it allows you to basically steal an opponent's monster and then remove both. And the last equip cell, the brand new one, Fascinating Bird. This similarly gives it destruction protection, and its effect is that if a Mikanko monster battles at the end of the damage step, you can target one card in the field, return to the hand, which is a decent effect, but the real impressive part of this card is its graveyard effect, as if it is in your graveyard, you can target one Mikanko monster in your graveyard, special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field, and if you do, equip it with this card. Now, notice how even though you lose the Mikanko you summoned when it leaves the field, you don't lose Fascinating Bird. You can do this effect every single turn as long as you have a Mikanko in the grave to summon with it, which is incredibly strong, and this is one of the best sins off of something like Great Mikanko of Legend's second effect, which allows you to banish itself from the grave to send a Mikanko card from your deck to the grave except for Legend. So you can use Legend and then dump Fascinating Bird for recovery in the following turn. And all of these cards' card effect destruction protection is incredibly strong, especially with Fury, which gives targeting protection even to your equip spells, and so you can basically have an entire board that can't be targeted, and your monsters are immune to effect destruction. And for the last of the Mikanko cards, we have Mikanko Kagura, their ritual spell. And this lets you ritual summon any Mikanko ritual monster, and you have to tribute monsters from your hand or field whose levels equal or exceed the level of that monster. Then you can apply the following effect. Destroy cards your opponent controls up to the number of equipped spells with different names in your graveyard, and if you do, inflict 1000 damage to your opponent for each card destroyed. So this is a very good removal effect, especially with how many equipped spells you can get into the graveyard over the course of a game. There's tons of burn damage, so this might just finish your opponent off. It's also nice because of how many ways this deck has to steal the opponent's monsters, and if they have a level, you can use them as ritual material for your own Mikanko Ohime to summon it. And while this is a one of, because you can search it with Ohime, so whenever you want to or are able to summon Ohime, you basically always have access to the ritual spell, which is very good. Then we have the field spell, Doorway of the Celestial Mikanko. While you control a monster equipped with an equip card, your opponent's monsters must attack them if able. If your Mikanko monster battles, your opponent cannot activate cards or effects until the end of the damage step. And if your Mikanko monster attacks at the end of the damage step, you can send one equip card you control to the graveyard. That monster can make another attack on a monster in a row. And this card basically is your OTK enabler. It forces your opponent to battle your Mikankos, it lets you attack multiple times, and it prevents your opponent from activating any battle phase effects. So this is one of the best ways to close out games pretty quickly. Then we have the trap cards, Mikanko Catfight and Mikanko Promise. Now Mikanko Catfight is really good, as if you control a Mikanko monster, you can target one face-up monster on either field, equip it with one appropriate equip spell from your deck, and its second effect is that if an equip spell is sent to your grave while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this card, then target one equip spell in your grave, add it to your hand. So that's a nice recycling effect, but that first effect is very good, as not only can you equip very powerful equip spells to your monsters, for example, Double-Edged Sword, you can also use this as a quick effect snatch steal alongside Inviting Rondo, or an interruption by equipping to your own monster of Purifying Dance. Really any combination of things. It allows you to do some very good power plays and get a little bit of recovery. Then Mikanko Promise lets you special summon one Mikanko monster from your hand or deck, banish it when it leaves the field, then you can equip it with one appropriate equip spell from your hand to graveyard. And this is a very good card to set up your board more and make a more powerful end board on your opponent's turn with this, and in the grind game. It's just a very strong card that lets you set up easier, and both of these are now very easily searchable with Fury. As for the non-Mikanko cards, I'm running 3 Preparation of Rites, as well as searches Ohime, and Ohime really forms the backbone of this whole engine and keeps consistency very high. In Preparation of Rites also lets you do some pretty funny little combos. Say you can use Great Mikanko to send Kagura to the grave, then use Preparation of Rites to search Ohime and add Kagura back to hand. Similar things like that. Double-Edged Sword is an extremely strong equipped spell, strong enough to be the only non-Mikanko spell I'm running. And well, its effect is that you can only control one double-edged sword. The equipped monster gains 2000 attack. Also, both players take any battle damage from attacks involving the equipped monster. If you take 2000 or more battle damage, send this card to the graveyard. But because of the way Mikankos work with their battle damage effects and such, instead of both players taking the battle damage, instead your opponent will just take 4000 if you attack them directly. And this card will never be sent to the grave, because the Mikankos all state that you do not take any battle damage, instead your opponent takes any battle damage you would have. Which makes Double-Edged Sword a very strong push and OTK machine, and lets the deck actually beat over some smaller monsters. Now why am I running one? Well, it's because Catfight lets you just equip it straight from the deck. So I don't really feel the need to run more than one, as it's kind of circumstantial and it's extremely easy to access, as Fury can basically search it with a trap card, which can be searched with Ohime, which can be searched with Preparation of Rites. Then I'm running 6 Kaijus, as they're very nice removal for a deck that doesn't really have much removal, but all the return the hand effects are very abusable with them. Say you Kaiju an opponent's monster, then you use Arabesque to put it back to the hand to special summon a Mikanko, and then Kaiju another monster. And you can just keep doing this over and over again. So not only good removal, you can basically turn the deck into a modern Luna Kaiju strategy. And now as for the extra deck, I'm running basically just every competent rank 3 and generic links because, well, the deck's extra deck is very loose. You can put almost whatever you want in here. You really aren't frequently going to be going into it. It is a good idea to run a suite of link monsters to take advantage of monsters you might steal with something like Inviting Rondo. And the rank 3s because you're running tons of level 3s, and having access to Zeus and these certain little niche effects is nice. I am also running Isolde, which is kind of a relic of older lists, but you can theoretically summon it with something like Hair, and then summon another Hair by dumping 3 equipped spells in the grave, which gives a ton of setup. And, well, just a generic kind of access code Nightmare IP package. And for the rank 3s, basically Fortune Tune lets you summon Zeus as you can make it immune to battle. Gossip Shadow negates monster effects. The 2 Djinns allow you to basically summon each other onto the board, just to kind of get board presence. Ghost-Shake Alucard destroys set cards. Leviair brings back banished monsters. Breaksword just can destroy itself, or a card you control and a card your opponent controls. Nightmare Shrek lets you attack directly, and Downer and Zeus are there to make Zeus. As far as the rank 3s I would consider to be the most valuable, well, Breaksword is a very good removal, and Leviair just lets you bring back banished monsters, a thing the deck otherwise can't really do, but quite a few of its cards will actually banish monsters you control after they leave the field or something like that. So I would definitely run at least Leviair, maybe Breaksword alongside Zeus, if you really want Zeus, run something like Fortune Tune. But it's a very flexible extra deck, lets you put basically whatever engine you want in there. It's nice. As for the ratios and why I'm running them, I'm running 3 Hair and 3 Fury, as I consider these to be the strongest of the effect main deck Mikankos. They let you search cards, let you get advantage, set up your board. They're very powerful and you always want to have access to them. Then I'm of course running the 1 Nini, as while this card is very strong, its interruption is kind of situationally good. Just by itself, its interruption effect is not the greatest. Your opponent gets back the monster in the end phase. You really want something like Purifying Dance to actually fully take advantage of it. I am of course running 3 of Ohime, as this card lets you get access to any other Mikanko. You always want this in your hand, which is also why I'm running 3 Preparation of Rites. Not only that, actually summoning this card, especially if the effect is something like Kagura, can completely swing games and let you just win off the spot. I am running 3 Great Mikanko Legend as well. It lets you summon stuff like Ohime. It lets you extend more. Say one of your Mikankos gets interrupted, you can use Legend to get another one from your hand into the field. Its grave effect is very nice, especially with Fascinating Bird. This card completely changes how good this grave effect is, as all of a sudden you have a revival effect off of this card as well. Blazing Dance of the Mikanko, speaking of revival effects, is very good. It basically does the same kind of effect, but just in an equip spell. So not only does it let you summon Mikanko's from hand and grave, it lets you trigger their effects. Arabesque, as said before, is, in my opinion, probably the strongest card of the entire deck. It lets you remove cards your opponent controls. You can bounce kaijus back to hand. You can bounce your own cards back to hand, like an Ohime, say, that's set to be removed by legend. You can bounce back to hand to summon any Mikanko you want from the deck. It's just a very strong effect. And if you still control this card, you can use its effect on the next turn. Then Rondo is Snatch Steal, basically. You lose the effects of the monster, but you do get to then do whatever else you want with them. And if this card leaves the field, the opponent's monster goes to the grave. And that effect happens even if you don't control Mikanko. So even if they regain control of the monster, if they decide to remove this card, they lose that monster. There's no way to stop this. Then if I am running one of Purifying Dance and Mikanko, because it's a strong removal effect, but I consider it similar to Nini, where generally it's situational, it's not always good, because, well, you're removing cards from your own field. You don't really want to always do that, especially in a deck like this that can't swarm a ton, so you probably want something like Nini or Rondo to take control of the monster. And it's also pretty searchable, because Catfight lets you equip it straight from the deck. Hair can search it, Ohime can search it, you can equip it from the Grave of Promise, you can dump it off of Legend. You'll always have access to it when you need it, and it's a strong effect when you can actually take advantage of it. And Fascinating Bird is very good, but I would consider this actual equip effect to be probably the weakest out of them all. It's a battle phase effect that happens at the end of the damage step, which isn't too problematic for Mikanko since they can't be destroyed by battle, but the removal just isn't the greatest. It's removal for a deck that otherwise doesn't have it much, but it's just returning the hand. It's something that I can always do anyways. You can return a kaiju, which is nice, but it's just decent. And its grave effect is very good, but you only ever need one in the grave to take advantage of that. It never removes itself from the graveyard. And it's similar to what I said about Purifying Dance. You can get access to it whenever you need it. So while at the right time it can completely warp games, you'll be able to get to it at the right time. I'm running one Kagura, as this is even more situational than those two. It's only ever useful if you have Ohime in the hand and Ritual Fodder to tribute for it, and mostly really useful when you have a bunch of equip spells in the grave to trigger its destruction effect. But this can basically take the deck from having almost no real offensive pressure to wiping your opponent's entire board and burning them for over half their life points. It's a very strong card when it goes off, but it's extremely accessible. Ohime can search it, you can get it off of Rights if you dumped it off of Legend. You'll have it whenever you need it. The field spell is kind of similar, where it's very easy to get access to, although it's probably the hardest to get to. The only way to search it is through Ohime, but it doesn't really set up boards, it doesn't get you any advantage, but when it goes off, your opponent just dies because they have to slam into one of your monsters, especially if they have a double-edged sword. If they just don't read it, they might lose the game on the spot. It gives all your Mikankos an Armades effect. It's very strong, it lets you attack multiple times. It's just a good card. I'm running one double-edged sword because, similar to these other equip cells, it's searchable. It's only searchable off Catfight, but you can get Catfight pretty much at any point in the duel. You can get it off Ohime, you can get it off of Fury. It's very accessible. And this is another card where it doesn't really get you advantage, it doesn't build your board. It's purely offensive, and so you'll really only want to get it when you need it. I'm running 2 of each of these kaijus, as you generally want to have a variety of them, so if you draw 2, you can summon one to your own board. But I'm also not running the big light ones, because while those would cause you to be able to do more burn damage to your opponent through battle, those also give your opponent Bestial fodder if they get rid of them. Because in general, this deck is virtually immune to Bestials, besides Ohime, which oftentimes you'll just want to sit in your hand. Everything else is an attribute that isn't light or dark. And so these kaijus are all pretty strong, but they're not light attribute. And, you know, you're missing 300 damage. It's not that big of a deal. As for the extra deck ratios, well, it's extremely flexible. This is mostly for testing. You can probably compress the extra deck down a lot more. I'd maybe run more generic Link monsters to take advantage of a card like Rondo more, but it's not too much of a problem. You're mostly relying on the main deck. And well, here's an example test hand, a pretty good one, but it generally shows all the features of the deck and what the new support can do. And well, of this hand I have Mikanko Promise, Arabesque of the Mikanko, Purifying Dance of the Mikanko, Mikanko of the Ohime, and Doorway of the Celestial Mikanko. To start off with, I'll activate Ohime's effect to search a Mikanko card, in this case searching Hair, and then I will go ahead and discard Purifying Dance. Now the reason why I discarded this is because it was not only probably one of the less essential cards in my hand, but later on I will be able to get it back with this card. Next, I will go ahead and normal summon Hair. Then I will equip it with Arabesque, and using Arabesque, or after it equips, Hair will use its search effect, and using this I will search Blazing Dance of the Mikanko, and I search this basically for later usage as it can reborn a monster from the grave or summon from the hand, so it's nice to have. Then I can go ahead and use Arabesque to bounce Hair to the hand and summon Fury. Then Fury gets equipped and can search a trap card. In this case I will search Mikanko Catfight. So now I have both the traps. I will activate the field spell Doorway. I will set the 2 trap cards and pass. Then on the opponent's turn, I can activate Mikanko Promise to summon from my deck a Nini, and then equip from my graveyard the Purifying Dance of the Mikanko. And, well, what does this board do? Well, Nini allows me to quick effect target a monster my opponent controls and take control of it till the end phase. Then I can use Purifying Dance to theoretically bounce that monster and an opponent's extra monster they just special summon to the hand. I also have Mikanko Catfight, which can let me, say, activate from the deck Rondo to quick effect Snatch Steal an opponent's monster. And I have tons of follow-up play. Blazing Dance of the Mikanko will let me basically reborn any lost Mikanko or summon a Hair from the hand. Ohime will let me search whatever I want. And the field spell will mean that my opponent's going to be really pressured to try and get rid of it, or else I'm just going to kill them by doing the battle damage effect. In general, this is a pretty strong effect. As well, one other thing is that I still have Arabesque on the field, so I can use it on the next turn if I want to summon a different Mikanko from the deck. And that's all really. Feel free to subscribe if you liked the content and want to see more later on, and please do leave your feedback in the comments.